will be given to us by Dr. Palvinder Singh sir, and the topic of the lecture is Enzymes, the Amazing Catalysts. So talking about the achievements of Sir, he has been elected for CRSI Bronze Medal in 2016. He has been awarded the Best Reviewer 3 times award by the American Chemical Society in 2012, 15 and 16. He has been elected for the Best Teacher Award by CRSI in 2011. He has published more than 104 research papers in national and international journals and has compiled many research projects under CSIR, SERB, UGC, and DST. So before we start with the lecture, this is the lecture which will be held on May 13, which will be the next lecture. And before we begin, I would like to tell you something about the rules, which are that you have to keep your mics and your audios shut, and the lecture would be for around 40 to 45 minutes. After that, you can just raise your hand and I will request the moderator to switch on your mic and you can easily ask your doubt. With this, I request Sir to please begin with the lecture.
Thank you, Jasleen, for a nice introduction. So it is audible to all?
Yes.
Okay. So let me first thank Dr. Venus and his team for providing me this opportunity to share some of my experience with you that I have gained over the years. So I welcome you all in this session. And the purpose of this session is, number one, to remind you about the responsibilities that you have to have for the society and for the purpose for which you have joined the science stream, you have taken the scientific career, you have chosen scientific career. So I would like to give a little bit sort of reminders that you should have. And secondly, it will be a good time to make you aware about the research activities which are going on in the department, and particularly the research, my research group that is engaged in those activities. So when you joined the department or you have taken up chemistry as a career or science in general, you must be having some objectives in your mind. So this is the starting of your scientific career, and you have some goals to be achieved after you complete the BSc, MSc, or a PhD degree from the department. And what are the major issues before us? And number three, how to make your objectives issue-oriented. So what I want to say is the goals or the objectives that you have in your mind, whether they are relevant to the issues which we are facing at present, and how to make your objectives issue-oriented. How can you divert or you can shape your activities so that you can be able to do something useful for the people who are waiting us outside the walls of the university. So let me tell you, or I would like to share with you what are the major issues before us. Number one, as all of you are, we are facing the human health, that is a major issue before the society. Energy is another one, and the environment is the third one. If you try to keep all the activities, research activities which are going on, they are more or less focused on one of these three issues. And we can say our society, our country, or the globe as a whole, it is having these type of issues which need solutions, which need proper uh, uh, research activities so that we can do something in this direction. Out of these three, if we look at the human health, that is one of the major or the very sensitive issue. As we all know, we are facing this problem for the last about 2 months, and we have locked down everything just because of the sensitivity of this issue. And what we need is the affordable medical facilities so that we are safe, we can combat any type of the disease. And if you imagine all the medical stores are closed for just 1 day, or in other words, there is no medication available for the particular disease, what will be the situation? So just in the next few slides, I would like to share with you the present scenario. As you all of us are aware of, this corona disease, we are having no medication, and what type of suffering we are having due to this disease. So the challenges before us, if I just like to remind you about the conventional diseases like tuberculosis, diabetes, infectious diseases, cancer, malaria even, we are not having, you can say, the 100% medication that is available to get rid of these diseases. But besides these, every other day, we are having one or the other new type of disease. Just a few years back, this Zika virus has troubled all of us, and by the time we have control over this disease, a new one, this COVID-19, it is before us, and this is one of the major challenge before the scientific community to control this disease in a, you can say, significant way, so that everybody is safe of this disease. So for this purpose, what we actually need is, so I have tried to design the lecture from the point of view that even the BSc students might have joined this session. So they could be able to understand how we can address the issues like human health, and the MSc or the PhD students, they can get some new ideas how to proceed with a systematic way when we are looking for the cure of these diseases. So the drug development, that is an interdisciplinary approach, and we have to have it so that in order to get rid of the diseases that I have just mentioned in the previous slide. So for that purpose, you need to target a disease. You have to choose what disease you are going to target, and you are trying to make a new medicine for this disease. And for that purpose, you need to define the particular cellular target, that may be an enzyme or a nucleic acid, and then you design the molecules, their synthesis, characterization, and you do different types of tests at the enzyme-based, cell-based animal studies, then the clinical trials. And for this whole process, the cost and the timeline, these are the major bottlenecks. People have to spend a lot of money and have to wait for 8 to 10 years continuously to have a new drug in the market. But out of these, I would like to say the cellular target, the enzyme or the nucleic acid, that is the most critical point where people have to invest a lot of time before starting with the process of drug designing. And for the today's talk, I would like to mention about the enzymes, their basic concepts, which are ultimately related to the process of drug designing. So that is the reason I have divided into 3 subparts: the basic or the fundamentals of the enzyme catalysis, then the use of enzymes in drug designing, and lastly, the enzyme models. So why I started with the basic concept, whatsoever I will share with you about the drug designing process where we target a particular enzyme. So basically we are we are starting from the fundamentals of the enzymes. As all of us know, the enzymes are the biocatalysts, and they are ultimately controlling all the biological or the biochemical processes which are going inside the body. So to start with the catalyst, I hope all of you are aware of this diagram. Any chemistry textbook, you will have it, where you can easily see I have drawn 2 curves starting from the rectant from the left hand side and to the products. And as the reaction progresses, it passes through the transition state. So one line, the green line, it is corresponding to the catalytic reaction, while the other one, I have just mentioned that there is no catalyst. So basically the purpose is there are 2 factors which are working. When we use a catalyst, we have to decrease the energy, activation energy, and so that the reaction gets speeded up. So if you just pay your attention to the energy of the reactants and the energy of the transition state. So there is a gap that I have shown in red, the activation energy that is required for this reaction when we don't use catalyst. So how can we speed up the reaction? For every chemical reaction, it has to pass through this energy barrier. Only then the reactant will get converted into the product. So to pass on the reactant to the product, we have to decrease the energy barrier. That can be done in 2 ways. Either you increase the energy of the reactant or you decrease the energy of the transition state. So in other words, you stabilize the transition state or you provide energy to the reactants in the form of heat or other sources so that the reactants becomes more energetic and the reaction gets speeded up. But in the biological systems, we cannot increase the temperature of the body. It remains 37 degrees. And we cannot use a direct source of energy to speed up those reactions. So this is just one example I have taken that for a catalyzed and uncatalyzed reaction, just 2 substrates you think of glucose and sucrose. The bottle of glucose kept in the lab or on the shelf, it is stable for years without undergoing any decomposition. Just for your information, the half-life for decomposition of glucose is 96 years, whereas for sucrose, it takes about 440 years to get completely hydrolyzed. And if you look into in terms of the rate constant, for sucrose, it is 5 into 10 raised to minus 11. For whereas glucose gets decomposed at over 300 degrees Celsius. But otherwise, you can think of, if we just take up a pinch of glucose inside the body, the moment it goes inside the body, it gets broken into carbon dioxide and water within a few seconds. So you can imagine why this difference is there. The glucose, which requires about 300 degrees Celsius temperature to get decomposed, it breaks down into CO2 and water at about 37 degrees Celsius inside the body. So this difference is due to the presence of enzymes. For sucrose, the invertase, it has raised the rate constant to 10 raised to 4, from 10 raised to minus 11 to 10 raised to 4. Similarly, for glucose oxidase, the rate constant becomes 10 raised to 4. So you can see the difference in the rate constant. So that means my point is that I have shown in the previous slide, the catalyst, the enzymes, they are playing the critical role, the major role in the breakdown of the substrates inside the body. Now the question is why this rate enhancement is there? Why enzymes, they increase the rate of reaction so much? So for that purpose, again, you have to go back to the slide, the curves that I have shown, that either we have to stabilize the transition state or we have to increase the energy of the reactants. And remember, the enzymes do both the jobs. Enzymes stabilize the transition state as well as they provide the energy to the reacting system. As you know, when one hydrogen bond is formed, just for an example, I have taken about 5 kilocalorie per mole of energy is released. And when a substrate interacts with the enzyme, there are about 10, 20 or 50 hydrogen bonds gets formed. And you can imagine how much energy will be released in that particular pocket, that particular site where the reaction is going on. So to explain my point, I have just taken one example. This is just the 3D view of an enzyme and how the enzymes, they catalyze the reaction. And this stabilization of the transition state or all the reactions which are going on in the enzyme, if you just look at this slide, this whole enzyme is not responsible for the catalytic process. It is only a pocket of the enzyme where the reaction goes on, and that we call as the active site pocket. And that active site pocket is responsible for the stabilization of the transition state. By the expulsion of water, the substrate gets fit in the active site. Then the reactive groups approach there, and with the help of the metal ion or other organic substance that we call as the coenzyme, the reaction is accomplished. So here you have to keep in mind that this active site is the most important component of the enzyme. If an enzyme may be having about 300 amino acids, there could be only 10 or 15 amino acids that are responsible for making this pocket. And whatsoever I will share with you about my own research work, that will also be more or less focused on the active site of the enzyme. So one example I would like to share with you about the enzyme carboxypeptidase. You know, it is a peptidase enzyme which is responsible for the breakdown of the peptide bond. It is a hydrolyzing enzyme, and you can see how the enzyme has managed its active site. You can just look into a glutamate residue here, histidine residue here, zinc as a coenzyme is there in the pocket of the this active site, and you can see the substrate that is a peptide. It comes into the active site of the enzyme, and then the next process starts where the carbonyl group, it coordinates with the zinc, and you know we have to break this carbon-nitrogen bond, the peptide bond. And by the coordination with zinc, this carbonyl group, it becomes more electrophilic. Then the water comes in, and water as a hydroxide ion, it will react over the carbonyl group. And then by the protonation of the nitrogen, this carbon-nitrogen bond will break. So the reaction that you usually perform at about 100 degrees Celsius in the laboratory, it is going on at 37 degrees Celsius in the body by the participation of these different residues in the active site pocket of the enzyme. So that means the enzymes are the major targets of the disease, because I would like to share in the next few slides why we are targeting enzyme. But at this point, what I have conveyed is that the enzymes, they are playing very specific role in the body for the maintaining of the different physiological conditions, and that they do by the catalyzing the different reactions which otherwise are not possible under normal conditions. So the proteins or the enzymes, they play key roles in the living system. Here I have just shown a few examples in terms of catalysis. Almost all the chemical reactions in the living cell are catalyzed by proteins. Just you can see the alcohol dehydrogenase, oxidize alcohol to aldehydes. Further transfer of information in terms of hormones. Insulin controls the amount of sugar in the blood for the purpose of transportation. You know the hemoglobin, myoglobin, they are the oxygen carriers. And here you can see just a cartoon model of the hemoglobin, how it acts as a carrier of oxygen inside the cells. So my point is, I would like to summarize this point. All the biochemical processes are controlled by the enzymes, and whenever the enzymes are not working normally, you can say abnormal function of the enzyme could be seen in two ways. Either the enzyme is overexpressed, that means it is working more than its normal. That will also cause a set of diseases. I have just listed a few of them. The overactivation of dihydrofolate reductase or tyrosine kinase is responsible for cancer. The overexpression of cyclooxygenase enzymes leads to inflammation. Similarly, the other cardiovascular and Alzheimer's diseases even. On the other hand, if the enzymes are underexpressed, that means they are working below their normal, that will also be responsible for the diseased conditions. Insulin is just one example. You know the insulin, it maintains the glucose level in the blood. And if the insulin is not working properly, this sugar level increases, the person becomes diabetes. You can see the other, some sort of diseases are also there. Then what is the solution? So under both the conditions, which are considered as the diseased conditions for the body, so either we have to block the enzyme or we have to activate the enzyme. We have to block the enzyme if it is overexpressed, and we have to activate the enzyme if it is underexpressed. And that is basically what we are looking at when we start the process of drug designing. That is, our target is a particular enzyme or the protein which we have to block or we have to activate. Okay, for this purpose, now I come to my point, the sort of research activities that we are engaged in. Keeping in mind, the background is that we are interested in designing a new drug against a particular disease. So what techniques we normally prefer to use? We start with the particular target protein, and we look into the molecular modeling. We design the new molecules. We see how our molecule fit in the active site of the enzyme, whether this molecule needs further modification or it is good for the further studies. So that is the starting point. And of course, once we design a set of molecules, we go for the synthesis and then the characterization and the purity of the molecules, compounds. That's very essential. I would like to mention here one point. If your compound is 98% pure, even the 2% impurity can harm your results. So you should be very careful about the purity of the compound before you go to the next level. And then we look into the association between the molecule and the target protein that we have in mind. Target protein from where we started. So this is the simplest way to look into whether your compound, your molecule is interacting with the target protein or not before going to the next level. So the same thing we do also with the isothermal titration calorimetry, where you can look into the thermodynamics and the kinetics of the interactions. The mass spectrometry also helps in determining the interactions between the drug and the protein. Similarly, after we have ascertained, we have sure that our molecule having the sufficient interaction with the target protein or the target enzyme, we go for the enzyme amino acids, where we determine the 50% inhibitory concentration. Well, then we pass to the cell-based studies, animal studies, and after we have the sufficient results from the animal studies, we go for the quantitative structure-activity relationship, whether our molecule needs further modification or not. So this is just a set of, you can say, the steps that we have to pass through before we declare that this particular molecule is suitable for the next studies. And I would be happy to share with you that all these facilities we have in the university itself. We have not to go anywhere else. Over the years, these facilities have been created in the department, or we have some collaboration with the other departments, especially the pharmaceutical departments, where we have the animal studies done over there. Okay, so with this background, I would like to discuss one case study where we have in mind to develop an anti-inflammatory drug, and our target is enzyme is cyclooxygenase. So remember, whenever we start with the designing of the new drug, we have to look into a lot of literature, what is available, what is the background of the disease, what people already were using, and we get some idea from those informations which are available in the literature. So inflammation, it is basically immune response of the body when at the lower level, but when it becomes chronic, it leads to number of symptoms. You can just see here the redness, swelling, pain, and even the loss of certain body functions. And what is responsible? The enzymes which are responsible for this disease is the overexpression of the cyclooxygenase 2 that I have shown here, inducible under the conditions of inflammation. So what literature says that over the years, even 400 BC reports are there, people were used to have this willow tree leaves to get rid of the liver pain or reduce inflammation. And it was only in the 18th century when the Bayer company, they have isolated this natural product and seen that it is nothing but salicylic acid, a very simple molecule. And in 1899, the Bayer has introduced the first systematic drug, that is aspirin. And you will be surprised to know that after over 120 years, aspirin is still aspirin. There is no substitute of aspirin. You go to the chemist and without even the recommendation of the physician or the doctor, you buy aspirin. But later on, it was found the aspirin was having a number of side effects. And why those side effects were there, I would like to show in the next slide, that when we have to design the drug systematically, you again have to look into the metabolic pathway that which is responsible for the disease. So here I have shown you that inflammation, it basically starts with the disruption of the cell, which initiates the inflammatory response, activates the phospholipase that release the arachidonic acid, and some pro-inflammatory cytokines are also released here. So if some BSc students are there, may they feel a little hard to understand, but it is not difficult. These are all the literature reports that I am showing. Only the thing is how carefully you look into, you scrutinize the literature reports about the metabolic pathway of a particular, you can say, this arachidonic acid metabolism. So here, release of arachidonic acid, it becomes a substrate of lipoxygenase as well as cyclooxygenase. And the metabolites are the leukotrienes and the prostaglandins. Similarly, when the pro-inflammatory cytokines are activated, it leads to the activation of inducible nitrogen nitrosynthetase enzyme, and that will reach the nitric oxide radical, and that will also stimulate cyclooxygenase 2 for the production of more prostaglandins, and these prostaglandins are responsible for inflammation. So overall, what is responsible for the whole process that I have shown in red here, either these pro-inflammatory cytokines, INOS, or COX-2. So our target when we are designing the new anti-inflammatory drugs could be any one of these cellular targets. So today I would like to share with the cyclooxygenase 2. So what we did here, this is just a cartoon slide for the design of our molecules. As I told in the beginning, that the enzymes have the active site, and it is the active site where all the reactions are going on. So we should be very careful when we are designing the molecule, whether our molecule is fitting in the active site of a particular enzyme or not. Sometimes it also happens that you design a molecule and it, instead of targeting the desired enzyme, it may interact with another enzyme. So that will lead to side effects or some other problems in the use of that particular compound. So here I have just shown that these are the active sites of the two enzymes, COX-2 active site and COX-1 active site. And when we have small molecules, they all the three types of molecules, they fit in the active site of COX-2. But if we look at the active site of COX-1, these two types of molecules fit in the active site of COX-1, but the third molecule, the large one, have not entered into the active site of COX-1. So it is here where you have to design the strategy, the hypothesis about the design of the molecule, that your molecule should have such a site, such a functionality that it is suitable for interacting with the desired cellular target only. And then once you design the molecule, then you have to fit it into the active site of the enzyme. So the same active site pocket that I have shown in the starting slides that I have represented here. So this is the active site of cyclooxygenase 2. So here green part is the arachidonic acid, that is the natural substrate of cyclooxygenase 2, means this is responsible for the formation of prostaglandins. And now we have designed our molecule. You can see here this one, and it is exactly overlapping with the arachidonic acid. So that means we are in a comfortable position that if we start with these type of molecules, they can take the place of arachidonic acid, and maybe we can get rid of the arachidonic acid, prostaglandins. So here I would like to just share one movie here, that after we have designed the molecules, then we perform its docking. You can see the interactions between the ligand that is in the green, and the rest of is the protein part. So a number of up-downs, some interactions going on until it reaches at a minimum energy level. So if we have recorded over 5,000 such type of shots, so we have to analyze all those images and see how effectively our molecule is going to interact with the target enzyme. Okay, so let me come back to the, once we have designed the molecules, we have...
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, sir, but the video is not visible.
Oh, I see. May I run again?
Yes, sir. The video is not on yet.
Oh. I doubt if it will open here or not. I have... okay, baby, in the end, I will show you again.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I will show you again. I have to take it from another slide. Okay, so once we have designed the molecules, we have seen that it is going to interact with the target enzyme. Then, of course, as I told earlier during the steps, that we have to synthesize all these molecules, and this is the normal synthesis. The students have to spend a lot of time on the bench for the purification, characterization of all these systems. So I may not go into detail what we have synthesized, but this is just one of the critical steps in the process. And then after we are having the sufficiently pure compounds in hand, we go for their biological studies. First, we do the enzyme-based studies where we can see the interactions between the compound and the enzyme. And then the animal studies that we do, I told earlier, with the help of pharmaceutical people, where we can see that if we induce inflammation in the animal or we induce analgesia in the enzyme in the animal, so whether our compound is capable to reduce the inflammation or not. So that we all do with the help of these animal models, and a lot of studies, the repeating of the experiments, and we come to know that what is the percentage of reduction in the inflammation or analgesic effect of the compound. And this is just another case where we are having another molecule, and I have just shared with you all those steps. And even after doing all these analgesic or inflammation studies, we also ensure that our molecule is targeting the particular enzyme that from where we started or not. So that also we do with the help of the animal studies, where we use different types of activators of the enzyme, and then we see the effect of our molecule in the presence of those activators. And ultimately, you can see here that all those results are also further supported with the NMR molecular docking studies, and I will also show you the QSAR. So here I have shown specifically, and that's where Dr. Venus is expert. And you can see here the relaxation time of the compound in the presence of the enzyme. So significant decrease is there. And I would like to mention that the groups or the protons which are showing decrease in the relaxation time, the same protons are also found to interact with the enzyme with the help of the molecular docking studies. So that is a nice correlation between the theoretical and the experimental results. And ultimately, the quantitative structure relationship, we have to see that which part of the molecule is responsible for the activity of the compound. So I have mentioned just some descriptors here. You can see the steric, electrostatic, hydrophobic, ion bound donor acceptor parameters. And for this particular set of molecules, hydrophobic and steric factor, they are contributing much more as compared to the other parameters. So when we have to look into the next set of molecules, we will be careful that we have to increase some hydrophobicity or hydrogen bond donor acceptor groups in the molecule. So that is the advantage of performing the quantitative structure relationship. And in summary, I would just like to share some of the achievements where we have we were able to develop some lead molecules, and out of those lead molecules, the two sets of molecules, they are under patent. We have already applied, and it is at the final stage of, I think, the patent implementation. Okay, so the last part of the talk, I would like to, though I'm running short of time, the enzyme models I would like to finish. So whatsoever I have told earlier, so that is all we are doing with the whole enzyme. And Dr. Venus will appreciate that to have a sufficient enzyme in sufficient quantity is not an easy task. It is very difficult to have the enzymes for the whole set of studies. Its purification, characterization itself is a big task. To overcome those problems, we have also started at some stage the modeling of the enzyme. So that's basically the Problem was, as I told, the availability, difficulty of purification and characterization of the whole enzyme. And for that purpose, we can design a small molecule which can act as a modeling of the enzyme. So this is just a textbook paragraphs. You can have it that the enzyme models, they should have the particular features in the molecule. Those features must mimic with the whole enzyme. They should have certain interacting groups. It should have the sufficient hydrophobicity. It should be sufficiently soluble in the aqueous medium, should be workable under a range of pH and temperature. So that's just some of the requirements for an enzyme model. So I would like to share one example that we have undertaken, the case of thymidylate synthase. Thymidylate synthase is a, you can say, critical enzyme in the cell division. And especially for the cancer, people have targeted this enzyme by designing a number of molecules. So what this enzyme do, I have again shown the enzyme active site. I will show this slide in the next page that will be easy to see here. Okay. So this everything is going in the active site of thymidylate synthase. So what is actually, it is responsible for the conversion of uracil, you can see the red part here, H to thymine, CH3. So there is transfer of one methyl group at C5 position. So that it do with the help of this cysteine residue, which activates the C6 position, and this alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl system, it makes a enolate here that captures CH2 from dihydrofolate, from tetrahydrofolate, and transfer of this CH2 group here, followed by the transfer of a hydride ion that will lead to CH3 here. So if you look at carefully, the reaction is going on at this position 4, 5, 6. Okay, and in other words, you can say this is a sort of alpha alkylation. So what we did is we designed our own molecule that was basically having the acrylone template, and then we introduced the similar functionalities that were there in the enzyme thymidylate synthase, and when we made it to react with uracil, we got the formation of thymine here. So a number of steps are going on in between. Just for the shortest time, I may not be able to show those points, but what we further did is, as I told, basically the reaction is going on at the alpha beta unsaturated system. So not just the introduction of methyl group here, we can introduce a number of alkyl groups over here. So by using this model that is behaving similar to thymidylate synthase, we synthesized a series of compounds where alkylation or acylation was done at the alpha position of alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl system. So that was a first example where without any using any metal, not even at high temperature, we were able to introduce the alkyl or acyl groups here. So this is just in brief a example of the enzyme modeling. So these are just a few reports from where I have taken this material for studies, the publications from our group. And lastly, I would like to mention whatsoever the work I have shared, it may not have been possible without the help of these people who are sitting here. So it is the hard work of day and night work over the bench during the summer, during the winter, that I am able to share some of the results with you. And finally, the funding from the different sources. Thank you very much. I have taken a few minutes more, but I will be happy to share, to answer your queries, any question. Thank you.
I request the audience to please raise their hands so that they can ask their doubts. anyone who has, okay, so we have a doubt from Manisha. I request the moderator to please switch on her video.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Good evening, sir. I'm Manisha from MSc Honors Semester 4.
Yeah, yes.
Sir, as we all know about the drug discovery you have done in the last few months, can you tell something more in context of your discovery regarding to the breast cancer disease you have developed?
So in fact, that part I have not shown here.
Yes, sir. That's why I was curious to. I think most of us will be curious to know about your discovery because this has made all of us proud in the last few months. The big achievement you have done.
That's a good question, but just for the sake of some people from the BSc level, so I have not taken that part here. But let me explain you in a brief. For that type of studies, as I told even here, when we start with the inflammatory drugs, anti-inflammatory drugs, we basically start from a certain point that this is already known, and if we modify this molecule further, we may be able to increase its efficacy or its drug-like properties or its a drug profile. So, as here, aspirin is the starting point. In that case, we started from an antibacterial drug. And if you allow me, I can show you slides, Ivan. You just give me 1 minute. I can open. Here it is. Yes. So at that time, trimethoprim, that is an antibacterial drug, that was our starting point. And trimethoprim, it is basically targets a dihydrofolate reductase, DHFR enzyme. And you know, DHFR, as I have shown in the case of thymidylate synthase here, DHFR is responsible for the methylation of methylation process. And if we block DHFR, we will be able to block the methylation or formation of thymidine, and DNA transcription could be stopped, and you can control the cell division. So in that process, when we designed that anti-cancer drug, trimethoprim was the starting point, and we shifted its specificity from the bacterial dihydrofolate reductase to human dihydrofolate reductase, because for cancer, basically we have to target the humans. So if the human DHFR could be blocked, and that could act as the anti-cancer drug. So in that study, our target was the human DHFR, where we designed a number of molecules, and out of those, one molecule was really have shown good results, and it passed to the next level of studies. Maybe sometime later I can share that part in detail. But
yes, sir.
DHFR was the target in that case.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So the next doubt that we have is from Dr. Venus. I request the moderator to please switch on his microphone and his audio.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
It was a good lecture. Thanks. Finally, I know what all you do. It was fantastic. I have a very specific question regarding the patent. The problem is most of the people, I mean, in our academia, they are involved in writing publications, and we seldom go into the patents and getting into patents. So can you tell us about the process of patenting, how difficult it is, and what is the, I mean, how much time does it take, and what is the procedure? I mean, if in very, very brief.
It's a very good question you have asked. It is really that in academia, we are more interested with the publication. And as we know, the student also has the limitation, because if publication is not there, student will not be able to finish his or work, may not be
Yeah.
able to submit the thesis, and the patent, it takes a lot of time. And basically how I started is, it is basically through the DST, Department of Science and Technology.
Okay.
So we process this whole, the patent process through DST. We submitted the document to DST first, then DST gave its the whole responsibility to its attorney. They have
Okay.
people, and then they put up the case for patent. And once your application is filed, then you can publish your results. That
Okay.
is what they,
Yeah.
that's advantage we have. But before you get the even application number, it takes a lot of time. And it was really the students, Sukhmeet and Jagrup, they were caught in between. And because if we don't getting this application number, they were not able to publish it.
Because that day we invited one of the persons who is getting trained into becoming a patent attorney, and he was telling us all this information that because it involves a lot of writing process, and we are not at all specialized in. We can write publications, but writing patents on our own is like totally a different ball game.
Yeah,
So, as you said that if the DST is doing it, it's I mean, that is a good way to go about it. Because on our own, it is not possible. Unlike
otherwise, I will show you sometime that document that they have prepared. It is not my job. So
yeah, it's a fully legal
exactly.
document.
So
and he was also telling about the point you mentioned that you can publish once it is filed, because you cannot publish the results before that, because if you publish that, you cannot file it. So you can only publish after filing the results. So any advantage, you will like to say, should we go for more patents, or what is your viewpoint about that? Because I think you are the only one who is going into this direction. All of us are publishing, that's all. So what is your view about this?
Personally, I would like to say that we should go for patents, though it takes a lot of time. And I remember during those years, maybe it was 2015, 16, I was having very, very few publications. And at one point of time, I was afraid of that I may be knocked out, that I am not going to publish anything. But when you have the patent before you, it gives a different type of charm. You, no doubt, the publication, ultimately you get it, publish the results, but it is an additional advantage. Your publication may get slowed down, but ultimately you have another, I would say, achievement, that you have patented certain things, and that is your property ultimately. Yeah. And as you said, they take a lot of time. They have to search the database again and again, 2-3 times even. And even if they find some sort of overlapping, they will send you back that you give your explanation about this. But your question is good, but I would say that we should go for a patent.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
We have another doubt from Minakshi. Please, moderator, switch on her mic.
MSc Applied Chemistry ਦੀ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਆ। ਸਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿਲੇਬਸ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਸੀਗਾ QZAR ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਲੇਟਡ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੈਜੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਅਗਰ ਪੋਸੀਬਲ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਤਾਂ।
Related to QSAR?
ਹਾਂਜੀ।
Okay, so I can give you the detailed presentation. I have just shown here a very little about the QSAR. So basically you are relating the structure of the molecule with its activity.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸਰ। ਸਰ ਉਹਦੇ 2-3 ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਕੇਸ ਸਟੱਡੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਮਝਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ? अगर ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ time ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ
We can fix a time, and I will rather I can show my own work. We have a number of molecules, and I would like to show you our own results, that how QSR helped us to redesign the molecules. Yeah. So we can fix one session maybe at this weekend or next Monday.
okay sir, thank you sir.
So as we don't have any other doubts from the audience and we are running short of time, we have just 1 or 2 minutes left. I would like to thank sir for taking out his precious time. Okay, so we have a doubt from Yatin.
So I was unable to raise the hand because I am a moderator.
Okay.
So sir, I have seen that you have shown many slides related to biology, molecules. As I'm a second year undergraduate student, the things were out of my reach. But I want to know that to get into this field, to get into this research, is bio compulsory? We have to study biology, or we can proceed anyways if we are chemists?
If you are purely a chemist, then you have to take help from the biological pupils, certainly. If you at least have some background, as I have just briefly mentioned, the working of the enzyme, you can read the books, the relevant literature, and you will be capable to capture those fundamentals. But if you are purely, say, you are don't know anything about the biology, then certainly you must collaborate with someone from the biological side.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So one movie that you want to see?
Yeah, sir, that movie was not visible during the lecture. No?
So just
so if you can, so that will be.
I don't know if it will run or not. Let me try. No. No, maybe sometime later I will.
Dr. Balwinder, if you don't mind, can I answer his question regarding that?
Yeah.
So Yatin, the thing is, as in one of the lectures which we did in the very beginning with Jeet, when Jeet explained about research and all those things in IISER Pune. See, it is the time of interdisciplinary research, and with time it will keep on becoming more and more prominent. And there are some hardcore biology things which will be very difficult for a chemist to do always. But structural biology or biophysics is something which you can easily do. These deals with molecules and you are expert in molecules. Just the thing is, these are big molecules. Okay. I mean, I can call them, you can't call them supramolecules. They are actually bigger than that. I mean, depends on the definition. But ultimately, you are looking into the molecule. As Dr. Balwinder was showing, I mean, they are looking into interactions of two molecules. And as a chemist, this is something which you have been learning since day one. Okay, so there is nothing. Yeah, but you have to change. I mean, you have to read. You have to read the problems which the biology people are facing. Because you will have a different perspective. A chemist will have a different perspective to a biological problem. So you might need to collaborate, and there are always people which are willing to collaborate with you for biological studies. But all the things which Dr. Balwinder was showing, those molecular docking studies and all those things, these are very much easy to do for a chemist. You have to read. You have to read a little bit of biology, but it is something which you must. There is no pure science anymore. Everything is getting mixed up. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
But when it goes to a particular type of the critical point, let's say the synthesis of protein. So it is not the job of the chemist.
Yeah.
So there must it is better you have the collaboration.
Yes.
And to drug development, it is certainly a collaborative process. Yeah. Okay. So
Jasprit has a question. Please put her on.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Jasprit here from MSc first year. So my question is, as you told in the lecture that for the drug development, it takes near about 10 to 12 years. And in the current scenario, sometimes we sometimes we want the drug immediately, like the current scenario. So what is the procedure? May that some steps are deleted from the procedure, then I think there are so many side effects for that drug. So,
Yeah. I got your question. It's a good query. So
yes,
when we start with the, you can say ab initio, we don't have anything in hand. We have
yes,
to start with the designing of the molecule. First, we have to look into what is our target enzyme. Even sometimes we have to look into the structure of the target enzyme
yes,
and
sir.
what is the active site of the enzyme, and then design the molecule, then go to the synthesis and other parts. So when you are starting from that step, then it will take, people have optimized 10 to 12 years. But if you have something, you are starting something from the intermediate stage, as
Well,
people are as people are doing currently in the this COVID-19 cases, they already have some drugs they have that are showing the possibility of this antivirus. They are starting from intermediate steps, and people are saying that it will be possible by 6 months or 9 months, but still until we get the proper drug, it will be difficult to say that when it will come to the market. So it takes time because it is involved with the human health. You cannot take risk in any step. You cannot jump over to the next step. Okay, so starting from ab initio, it is 10 to 12 years, but starting from a lead molecule, you can maybe minimize to 2 years or 3 years sometimes.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Uh, with this, I thank Pulvinder sir for taking out his precious time and give us a lecture and tell us very new things about enzymes and their amazing properties. And before exiting the meeting, I would like to tell about the upcoming talk show, which would be about strategies to secure summer internships at premier institutions of India, which will be held on May 13, that is Wednesday at 4 p.m. And the panelists are as shown in the presentation. And I hope that all of you, I thank sir and I thank all the audience for joining with us today. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.